Being a fan is expensive. You have to buy tickets to see your team, you have to buy gear to represent your team, and you have to buy cable packages just to even watch your team. Something you could do to save money to even afford those tickets this year is switch to Mint Mobile, and that's who I'm partnering with for today's video. I know you've heard of Mint Mobile before because you've seen those awesome Ryan Reynolds ads about this service, but let me just tell you how awesome their service really is. Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for as low as $15 a month, and you don't sacrifice any coverage, data, or speed with them. They are built on the largest 5G network, and they cut out the middleman, so they cut your costs down so you don't have to go to the annoying wireless store that you really don't want to go to. Switching to Mint is extremely easy, and it takes 15 minutes. They use digital eSIM cards for immediate activation right from home, and the best part is, if you don't have a phone that is eSIM compatible, Mint will ship you a SIM card without charge. All mobile plans include nationwide talk and text, plus lightning fast 5G and free mobile hotspot. Mint will also show you how much data you use per month and recommend plans that will save you money. So instead of spending all that money on your current phone plan, you can switch to Mint Mobile today. Using my link, mintmobile.com/JKB, that's mintmobile.com/JKB, which you can always find in the description as well, to get premium wireless starting at $15 per month and be able to afford those game tickets you've been dying to buy. All right, so here is my raw reaction following the end of the divisional round of the playoffs for the NFL. The games weren't as quality, I would say, as last week, but we did have two one-possession games. We had two what I would call blowouts. We had one that was beyond a blowout. We'll start off with Saturday. My thoughts on the first game of the day, which was Jacksonville taking on Kansas City. Kansas City looked really good coming off that bye, which is, something that I think everyone expected. I believe they're undefeated coming off the first round bye. So they really looked the part there. You had Isaiah Pacheco, who ran extremely well. So the Chiefs all of a sudden look pretty damn good and scary with that run game. Travis Kelce found the end zone twice. He had 14 receptions, but big news, and as well as their defense, I thought played pretty well. But big news was the fact that Patrick Mahomes suffered a high ankle sprain, and he's likely going to end up playing. He says he's going to play. I would be shocked if he misses next week against Cincinnati, but just big credit and big ups to the Jaguars. They fought above their weight class, and I thought, they showed that they belong, or at least they're close to belonging. 9-8 this year could mean 11-6 or 12-5 next year. I mean, this is a really exciting team for the future. You look at what Doug Peterson has done. It's very impressive, and it's something that I'm not gonna lie, was very inspiring to watch. What Doug Peterson has gotten out of Trevor Lawrence when last year Lawrence had 12 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty impressed by it. I think I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. And I have never been as high as everyone has been on Lawrence, as the consensus, if you will. But I always thought he'd be good. I didn't think he'd be generational. I still don't know if he's generational, but he's looked really darn good. Fun 27-20 game. And then the nightcap wasn't so fun. Actually, I guess it was if you're an Eagles fan, or you just enjoy watching a lot of scoring, whether it's both teams or not. The Eagles put on 38 points on the board. They also came off their bye looking every bit like a Super Bowl team. And I thought the defense was outstanding. They pressured, Daniel Jones all night. It was really just a nightmare scenario for the Giants. They had to get off to a better start, and they simply didn't do that. And they weren't able to recover. They lost 38-7. They had some opportunities, but I think at the end of the day, the Eagles just ran the ball too well, whether it was Kenneth Gainwell on the ground or Miles Sanders or, quarterback Jalen Hurts or, hell, it was even Boston Scott, who has like a 9 straight game touchdown streak, which is just crazy to me. But the Eagles move on, and they'll be playing the San Francisco 49ers. About that game, once again, the Giants punching above their weight class, didn't quite think they were that great. was way higher on the Jaguars than the Giants. I felt like the Jags had an outside shot. The Giants, I felt like because it was a divisional game, it could be close, but the Eagles are so much more talented. You got to give a lot of credit to Brian Dable, who I think really had that team fired up and ready to go for the playoffs, and they won that game. They were able to make that upset, but at the end of the day, I just don't think that this team is that talented. They can change that in the offseason, but I thought Dable got the most that you could have expected out of that team. That's not to say they aren't talented at all and they have no talent, but, in the grand scheme of things, when you put the Giants up with the Eagles and the Chiefs and the Jaguars, I mean, every team that played on, Saturday, I think you could pretty well see who was the least talented that day, and it was the Giants. Moving on today, Sunday, as I'm recording this, we started off the day with a Bengals-Bills matchup that I have my thoughts on. I'm going to say it. I don't care how controversial it is, and I've said that many times before, but I don't understand how. And I know people have said, well, it's because they took away the game entirely. It was, canceled. I don't care. This game should have been on a neutral site, but even still, the better team won, and they had to go to Buffalo to do it. Keep in mind, the Bengals had their home game taken away from them, a valuable home game. You only get 8 or 9 of them, depending on the year. 8 or 9 home games. They lost a home game against the Bills with the potential to become the 2 seed and have a shot at hosting this game. They were winning when Hamlin went down with the injury. They were driving when Hamlin went down with the injury. I know it was only the first quarter. Instead, the game gets canceled. It doesn't get turned into a tie. If you do a tie, okay. But they were using hypotheticals instead for Kansas City will face the Bengals in Kansas City, but if the Bills win, since the Bills had a chance if they beat the Bengals in the game that they canceled, if the Bills win, then this game would be on a neutral field. If you're going to use that hypothetical, you could absolutely use the hypothetical that the Bengals could have won that game in Cincinnati, that they were winning when the game was called against Buffalo, and the Bengals could have had this home field advantage. So I just thought the NFL botched that. Again, I understand, and I don't mean to come off as insensitive to Damar Hamlin. I don't think I've done that. My channel has shown that. But I think it's more about just the fact that the Bengals were screwed, and it didn't matter at the end of the day. I'm not even going to say a ball doesn't lie, because the Bengals are just a better football team. They started out 0-3. They've only lost 1 game since. They've been incredible. 6-3 on the road. Yeah, you got to give a lot of credit to the Bengals. 27-10. At no point did the Bills really feel like they were going to win this game. Besides the fact that Josh Allen was on the other sideline. You're like, okay, maybe Josh Allen could get it done. No, the Bengals ran the ball, which is something the Bills refused to do. I felt like once again, when you look at their offensive coordinator, I just don't know what the Bills' offensive coordinator is doing. In a close game, in a game like this, there's a lot of snow. You should be, running the football, not throwing it deep down the field. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of their coordinator, and his name is escaping me, but I have been so critical of him lately. And I saw it last week. They should have lost last week to the Dolphins, a more talented team, and they lose. Well, this week, a more talented team punched them right in the mouth and didn't stop. I mean, I thought Burrow looked really good. I thought Mixon looked good. I thought P. Ryan looked good. I mean, but shout out, big shout out, by the way. Ken Dorsey is the OC. Name just came to my head, but big shout out to Jackson Carman. They may not talk about him on ESPN, whatever, wherever you watch this, but not this, but this coverage. But Jackson Carman at left tackle, they needed it, and he came through. They're dealing with 3 offensive linemen who are out, and they won this game by 17. I'm sorry. This Bengals team is for real, and I think we were so quick to crown the Bills. I understand they've had a lot of injuries, and they've been a fun story, but we were so quick to crown the Bills that we didn't see what was right in front of our faces. Last year, The Bengals made themselves known. Their presence was felt. They've beaten the Chiefs consistently. They've beaten the Bills now. The Bengals are legit, and they're one of the top teams that will be around every year because they have a young core that was all drafted. You talk about Burrow, drafted. You talk about Chase, drafted. You talk about Tyler Boyd was drafted. T. Higgins, drafted. So, their weapons were drafted. They have some guys on the offensive line. The offensive line improved this year. They had the injuries. The defensive line, coached by Lou Anarumo, I think is how you say his name. He has been superb. He's turned that defense into a fierce defense. I mean, only giving up 10 points on the road to the Bills in the divisional round of the playoffs. That offense with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Devin Singletary and James Cook, and I mean, you name it, Dawson Knox, Gabe Davis, it just doesn't end. They have so many weapons, despite what people will tell you. And Lou Anarumo he came prepared. This defense, this cover 3 defense, Josh Allen struggled against. It looked like the Legion of Boom, if I'm being honest. So Bengals, scary team right now. People forgot they started out 0-3. They've only lost 1 game since. They've been very hot. But speaking of very hot teams, the San Francisco 49ers have been on an absolute tear. They've won like 10 in a row, 11 in a row, something along those lines. They have been on a tear. And the thing about the San Francisco 49ers is that since they got Christian McCaffrey, it's been a whole different ballgame. They've averaged 28 plus points per game since he arrived, and they dropped over 40 points last week, so you had to know they were going to come out with a fire. Well, guess what? The Cowboys defense, coached by Dan Quinn, who coached the Legion of Boom, the aforementioned Legion of Boom, what can you say about him? I mean, I can't say enough about him. Dallas only allowed 19 points. Dak Prescott basically spotted him a free 3 just because of his interception in his own territory. So really, you give Dallas credit for 16 of those, giving those up. Dallas Cowboys defense is too good to lose this game. They gave the offense every opportunity. Tony Pollard goes down. Dak Prescott throws interception after interception. And this is what we talked about, all week, whether you were at the water cooler or you're on a stream or whatever. It's always been about Dak. Can he not turn the ball over? We saw what he did against Tampa. Can he be that against the 49ers? Can he be his best when his best was required? And he wasn't, which leads me to this. Dak Prescott, you're not winning a Super Bowl with. I don't care how blunt that is. This is year 7. I don't know how much longer you have to go on with Dak before you can be like, all right, this is over. I just don't know how much more you can take of Dak Prescott. Like, I'm at the point where, he's played 7 years. He's 2-4 in the playoffs. I understand playoff wins, quarterback wins isn't everything, but it's gotten to that point where you're like, how much more is Dak going to improve? And I don't think he's going to improve much more. I think he's capped out. And if this isn't doing it, then how does it make any sense with the teams you've put out, the defenses you put out, and the weapons you've given him this year? Maybe not so much, but how does it make any sense to say that just stick with Dak for loyalty's sake? Because I don't know about you, but I'm in the business of winning Super Bowls. I'm in the business of winning. And I'm sure Jerry Jones is going to get to that point. Like, look, I mean, Mike McCarthy, all you had to do was see the last play of the game and the fact he punted it instead of going for on 4th down with 2 minutes to go. That's all you need to do. You have to see that and then be like, all right, moving on from Mike McCarthy, train wreck. I think you hire Sean Payton. You guys know on the channel, I'm not the biggest fan of his, but, I think you hire him and, I think you give Dak 1 more year, maybe, and you roll with this defense. I mean, You beg Dan Quinn not to interview anywhere else. You give him a full-on, a big-time raise so he doesn't leave. And you figure out what you're doing with offensive coordinator, because I'm not a big fan of Kellen Moore either. So I don't know. Right now, Dallas is in a weird position. They've never gotten past the divisional round since 1995. So since then, since the last time they got past the divisional round, they won the Super Bowl. They have not done that. So it's not just Dak. It's Tony Romo. It's Quincy Carter, so forth. But it doesn't matter because this team is good enough. Like this Dallas team was in this game. They easily could have upset the Niners. If Dak doesn't throw an interception in the red zone, if Dak doesn't spot him 3 points right off the rip with the interception, 2 interceptions, red zone interception in there, and then this game is probably Dallas's on the road. It's a huge win, and we're talking about Dallas facing the Eagles. But instead, it's the same old Dallas choke job. And I don't think that's fair to put that on the defense, because I don't think the defense was that bad. I thought the defense was excellent. Holding the 49ers to only 19 points, honestly 16, was impressive. You got to give them props. But it's to the point where it's like, what is the point of keeping Dak? Maybe you give him one more year, but I really came away from this game like Dak is not the answer. He's peaked. It's done. You're not winning. You're not even getting past the divisional round. And Joe Burrow over in Cincinnati in his 3rd year is trying to go to his 2nd Super Bowl. That's, to me, where I'm looking at it. What about Jalen Hurts? Well, you could say, Jalen Hurts, not really fair, only had to win 1 playoff game, and now he's on, and he got to play the Giants. All of that's true, but Jalen Hurts helped win that division. Jalen Hurts only lost, 1 game all year? I don't know. I think the Eagles see what they have in Jalen Hurts, and they have a chance to win the Super Bowl. I think Dallas has seen it for 7 years that Dak is a good quarterback, that during the regular season he could be consistent, and be a solidified piece, but it's not working. You got to figure out, you can't just use the excuse we're cursed. You got to figure it out. I'm sure Jerry Jones is thinking the same thing. There's no way Mike McCarthy's back. No way. I cannot see it. I think they're going to go after Sean Payton, who was already on Dallas's staff a while ago. So in regards to that, I just had to bring that up because that was a huge takeaway of mine. I took away that Dak Prescott, 7 years. I don't think he's ever going to do it. I don't think he's going to do it with the Cowboys. I don't know if he'll ever do it, period. The Bills weren't that good. I deserve flack for, anointing them as the AFC darling before the season. I didn't think they were better than the Rams, so that's another thing I deserve flack for, because they are, as of right now. But I think the Bengals showed you they're a better team. They're run better as far as the coaching. I think McDermott's fantastic, but I think Ken Dorsey is one of the worst offensive coordinators. I don't care how great your play designs are, which I don't even think they're that great. I think at the end of the day, Ken Dorsey wants one thing. He wants to win flashy. He wants to throw the deep ball. He wants to rely on Josh Allen's arm, and I think it's stupid. I think, to me, Josh Allen, if you weren't reading what was in front of you, Josh Allen was costing the Bills big time last week. You could say Josh Allen wins football games, and I'm pretty high on Josh Allen being a top quarterback. But the last 2 games, and the thing is, Ken Dorsey doesn't help him. He doesn't do him any favors either. So, it's frustrating to watch because they're so talented. They absolutely could have won that game if they had just, stuck to a more like running the ball type of approach. I don't think they would have won against the Bengals because the Bengals, I think, are better, but they would have been in it at the very least. Just awful day at the office for Josh Allen and Ken Dorsey. And, Stephon Diggs is complaining. And, he's somewhat in the right to complain because he was open quite a bit where Josh Allen just flat out missed him. But man, one person says something, it's a rumor. 2 people say something, it starts to be a fact. That's not a cold hard thing, but it's something that I've always heard. And I go back to Minnesota and how Diggs wanted out of Minnesota, and whether he was right or wrong, being on the sideline, complaining to Josh Allen and everything. I mean, I wasn't a fan of it. Was not a fan of it. I felt it was lame, and that's what I'll say about that. I'm not gonna try to get him in trouble for anything he hasn't done, but leaving the locker room like it was reported before anybody got there, just basically running away and not facing everything head on. I don't know. I didn't think that was very team player-ish, and yeah, I mean that's really all I have to say about that. So Bills, those are my takeaways. Dak, we talked about. Yeah, I mean, all in all, I think the best four teams from the NFL are in the championship weekend. So I think the league makes out well. I think everything is how they would want it. The 49ers, they barely won a game in which they played the Dallas Cowboys. That was the best team they've played since the Chiefs, in which they got blown out. So, we'll see. I mean, we'll see what Brock Purdy can do. He didn't look great today. He looked okay. Running game, essentially, I thought really stepped up at the perfect time for him. And, I think that the Eagles game is going to be a massive test because the 49ers are great at home, 8-1 on the year, but the Eagles are also great at home. And, I think when you look at the Niners, I mean, they've lost 3 games this year on the road, and I think the Eagles defense is going to be a problem. I think they're going to put pressure on Purdy. And then I think at the end of the day, I think, you look at what Steichen is doing. So talk about Gannon's defense, but then what Steichen is doing, the offensive coordinator, and just the way, at least in my opinion, Nick Sirianni is doing a hell of a job as a head coach. I just think the Eagles are really going to be a tough match for the Niners. And then I think the Chiefs and Bengals game could go either way. I think they're both really good. They might be on the same exact level. And it's just a difference between a couple plays that go down to, what happens in the game. Not anything that's going to be decided on paper, because the Bengals won the first matchup and they've won 3 straight, so we'll see. I mean, if the Chiefs are like the Rams last year, the 49ers had their number and the Rams won when it mattered. We'll see what ends up happening with the Chiefs, because the Chiefs want to get that revenge, and, I think that's obvious. So Eagles, 49ers, and Chiefs, Bengals, that is going to be a very interesting weekend upcoming. I'll talk about it a little bit as the week progresses, but I have other content I'll talk about as well. So be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll be back next time. So thank you guys so much. Take care.